My full name is Salvatore Antonio Del Deo, and I was named after members of the family. My mother was pregnant with me when she came to America, and I was born in America. I was lucky.
For 78 years, artist and Renaissance man Salvatore Del Deo has become a part of the fabric of that distinctive community called Provincetown.
When I first came here at 17, I said to my friend Charlie, I said, Charlie, that's where I'm going to live.
His life and work seem to mirror the town's untamed and unique landscape.
I was so sure that I would live here. And I did live here until I went in the service in 1948, 49. And then when I got out in 53, I met my future wife, and I stayed here, and then this became our home. I drove with a friend of mine from Providence to Provincetown. In those days, it took almost 6 hours to drive for 120 miles. So when I came here, I just couldn't believe that it was real, because from the bridge to Provincetown in those days, all the towns, I'd say 90% of all the buildings that are now on the Cape were not here. Just forests, trees. Angela, you've got to put yourself in the frame of mind that I'm talking about. You got to conjure up in your mind what this place must have been like. Even that 70 years ago, it was pretty much a wildness. I mean, there was no highway. There was just the old King's Highway that went along from one town to the other along the shore on the bay side. The ocean side was all wild. In those days, it was a fishing town. It really was a fishing town, So there were 40-odd piers that went out into the water. There were fish plants and cold storage plants, and 90% of the activity in town was revolved around fishing. And all the young kids that went to high school here, a few that did, they usually ended up working in the fish plants or where they cut fish or they froze fish or they had something related to fish. And a certain percentage would go to sea and be fishermen like their fathers and their grandfathers, So that was their destiny.
Those types of stories about the town. He can name every house, who lived there, what the families were like, what the families did. He remembers all that history. It's amazing. It's all in his head.
I finally got to Provincetown. I see these guys fixing the boat, and I took up my paints and started painting right away. And it was an epiphany for me. It was a new life. When I came to Provincetown, I'd see a number of painters painting outdoors. I said, these are my mentors. These are people I'm going to look at. And I did, and I was fortunate enough to become a cabin boy at the Beachcombers Club, which was a club originally created by artists, painters. Then they included writers and musicians, but all the arts. A few years later said, what did you go to study? I said, I studied at the Beachcombers Club because that's where I learned all about painting and music and literature and all the things that create the arts. It's still just for men, yeah, but they have a lot of functions where the women come. Their wives, their girlfriends, their mistresses, they all come. When I was 17, somebody said, go down and see that painting of Mr. Hawthorne's because you like to paint, people. He said he painted that. It's called The Crew of the Philomena Manta, and it's a big picture, but it's a masterpiece. And he painted when he was a young man. Really great work. So I said to myself, Jesus, boy, I look at this painting, I said, will I ever get to this point? Mr. Henchy came to Boston and gave a lecture and painting demonstration at the school I was going to, which was called Vesper George School of Art. And it was a wonderful school because it was a professional art school, not a college. It was a school where you learned your art of painting.
Renowned American painter Henry Henchy said, "Paintings are the visual music of the world." A student of Charles Hawthorne, Henchy became an art teacher in Provincetown, and he had a significant influence on a young Salvatore Del Deo.
He gave this painting demonstration. I was so overwhelmed by what I saw. Mind you, I'm 17 years old, easily impressed. And I see this man paint, and he's throwing these blobs of color on a canvas. I thought he was crazy at first, because the normal way of teaching painting in those days was you did an outline and you did a drawing, then you copied the drawing on your canvas, and then you made washes of tones and put them in here and there, light and dark, and then you gradually put color in. So it was a system. And this man is throwing all that out the window. And suddenly, after an hour, these colors, he went back to each color and refined it and brought them together. And suddenly, there was a head. Marjorie Wasborn, who was the model, she was the young student, and he picked her out of the class. Come up here and you'll pose it for me. He was very tough, tough guy. Strong and not of body, but of mind, and could speak well. So he started painting her with these blobs of color, and suddenly there was Marge on the canvas. I thought it was magic. I said to myself, my God, this is incredible. I feel like I'm like the beginning of life on earth, like something cataclysmic, it just happened to me. He developed a process that he learned from Charles Hawthorne, who was the man who started Provincetown being an art center. See, he came in 1890, and he started an art school here, and in a couple of years it was world famous. Students came from all over the world to study with him here in Provincetown.
He just had this vision that someday one of his paintings would be hanging next to the Hawthorne in the town hall. That was like on his bucket list of things to accomplish in his life.
I think I was at the Art Association drawing from the figure. We used to have weekly drawing there. They have a model, and somebody came in and said, Patricia Marie went down. So we all drove down to the pier to look, and there was everybody there, all the fishermen and their wives and their kids, and it was a communal mourning. I'd never seen the church so impacted inside and out. in Provincetown. Because I had fished already, I knew I had an idea of what they were suffering, the family, and the far-reaching effects of this disaster had on the town.
As what so often happens in life, tragedy becomes the catalyst for change.
I came here in 47 to paint, and I learned how to paint. I was a painter then. In 1976, October 24th, the Patricia Marie was sunk. So 7 people died at once. And since that day, my painting has changed. I think I'm now on the way to being an artist. Up until then, I was a painter. I felt like I was painting something, you know. I look out the window, I see something, and I paint it, or if I'm on the beach, that's painting. But hopefully this is beginning to be something about artistry, art. So from that day on, and I said, I've got to commemorate this. This is what I'm hoping I could do someday, something that would be memorable. I'm going to try to do something about this terrible tragedy. Since this tragedy, I did 3 major paintings like this, big. And one is going to be at the town hall. The other one we're donating to the Art Association for their permanent collection, and they've accepted it. It's also big. Related to this experience, but different. I did another painting of the entire crew of the Patricia Marie underwater. It's a subterranean landscape with Billy King in the middle. He was such a great guy. He was only 43 years old when he died. He left 7 children at home. 4 of them were adopted. He had 3 of his own, but he adopted 4 others. He loved kids so much. And he's the captain. He's responsible. And these 6 other men who are his crew are under him, and he's got his arms out, embracing them and then protecting them underwater. And it's hard to define in words because it's so ephemeral, it's so intangible, you know. What is art? We still don't know what really art is. That's why I'm very generous in my definition, because I think that anything that any person does with a sense of love and unselfish return, in other words, unrequited love, is art. I was a fisherman. I was a carpenter. I use these terms loosely. I just came to it. I fished for 2 winters commercially on the draggers, so I know. But that's why this painting, I think, has some relevancy, because I knew what these guys were going through. I know what it was like to be in a storm. I know what it was like to come back in pea soup fog where you couldn't see your nose in front of you. Here are these fishermen. They're risking their lives every day out there in the ocean. 90% of the fishermen in those days, and even today probably, but then more, didn't know how to swim. Yeah. They never swam, you know. because maybe it was because it was a taboo, but if you learn how to swim, you were inviting disaster. But if you didn't swim, then God would watch over you and take you back home safely.
Well, this was a very important painting because it was the sinking of the fishing boat where they lost the crew. It was a devastating, tragedy that occurred when fishing was like the utmost important thing in Provincetown. So it was a terrible, terrible accident, and Sal wanted to capture that essence, because when Sal paints, he paints people's souls. So he wanted to record that in a painting.
Because it touched almost every family in town. Because at that time, even as late as 1976, the town was still predominantly a fishing town. Today, it's living on the dreams of it. It's not the real thing anymore. So I came right away, I had this canvas, and I started painting it. And then I said, I'm going to do, all the people are going to post me, I'm going to try to get fishermen to post me. Some of them were very reluctant, especially the old timers. They thought it was bad luck. I did a painting of a fisherman once, an old man who was a dory fisherman, 1890s, 1900s, where you dory to the banks and they'd let you off the big boat, and then you spent a day fishing all by yourself, and then you rowed back to the mothership if you could find it. Sometimes the fog would be like hours before, days before you saw your mothership again. So I said, I'm going to get real fishermen to post me. So JB on the left, he's probably the most knowledgeable and successful fisherman and hunter that I've ever known in this town or anywhere. And he's a wonderful guy, very generous. And then, of course, the guy in the middle is Chris. That was his father that went down with the boat. He's still alive. He's got 2 boats of his own now. And that's his son, Jared, in the middle. And if you notice in his hand, he's holding on to a little toy boat. So I'm trying to make him, like a memory, a prophecy, what's going to happen to him. He's going to be a fisherman just like his grandfather. And then Eddie Ritter up above, he was one of the really great guys. He was the hippie fisherman of the fleet, but he chose to fish by himself. After fishing commercially on boats, he bought a dory, and he became the only dory fisherman left in Provincetown. And then beneath him was Lawrence Schuster, who just died last week. He just died, and he was a commercial fisherman out of New Bedford for years. So everybody on the painting were real fishermen, whereas in Hawthorne's painting, only one man in the painting was a fisherman. The others were friends of his, young students who posed for him.
What's interesting about Sal, sometimes Sal has worked on paintings for 30 years. He doesn't just bang it out in a couple days, it's done. Sometimes he works on it, then he puts it aside. There are a lot of paintings that he's working on now that were things that he worked on before that he never felt were completed. There's a certain point at which he feels the painting is actually finished.
I said, boy, imagine have my painting near Mr. Hawthorne's. It was a dream. This year, we were notified by the Art Commission and the secretary to the town manager that they had voted unanimously to accept this gift of this painting.
Kevin McLaughlin is not only a friend of Del Deo's, but he is the owner of the painting that has recently been hung in the same corridor as Charles Hawthorne.
Well, the thing is, Sal's 95 years old. I mean, I'm sure he's going to go to over 100, but why wait? You know, like now's the time. If it's, you know, the environment's right. The painting is important for the town. It's important for the town hall. It's important for Sal, the community. It's important for everybody because it captures that element of the whole fishing village thing that is really pretty much gone now. I mean, very, very little. So it kind of captures all of that, and by putting it in the town hall and having it there permanently is going to be a good reminder of what this town was all about back in the days of the fishing era. He made 3 of those paintings, so this is like one of 3 of them, and he wanted this painting to be always in Provincetown. He did not want someone to buy it and then take it out of the town. He always intended for it to stay here. So this painting was completed and was ready to go out into the world, and this was the best opportunity to see that happen, and I was glad that I could be a part of it.
And now, 78 years later, I see my painting hanging up here, and I just still can't believe it, but it fits there perfectly, thanks to the committee, to Sam, and to my son, of course, and all the people that volunteered to see this thing through to the end.
Well, the thing is that, you know how everybody's all caught up in their own thing and blah, 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 and, you know, they don't really think outside of themselves as much. I think it's more important now than ever to think outside of yourself and think about others, and, you know, how you could be a part of a bigger, you know, community and make things happen. And I thought this was a great opportunity to help a lot of people, like help Sal with his goal, give something back to the town because the town gives so much to me, and give something back to the people because the people give so much to me. So it was my way of giving back to all these things, and I thought it was appropriate that this you know, situation opened up where the painting could go in the town hall.
As is to say, I'm sort of lost for words. This is such a moving experience for me, as it is, I'm sure, for the King family and for all the people who love this town as much as we do.
How do you feel?
I feel a little like the yoga of old. I feel elevated off the earth. I'm not in the gravity anymore. I'm up here somewhere.
Floating.